This article is 1v1, but the female lead didn't know about it in the early stage. If you like the girl paper, feel free to jump into the trap. As a wealthy and powerful young lady, Su Kuei was actually cheated. So she decisively ruined the reputation of a pair of dog men and women. However, even dogs may jump over walls in a hurry, so she died. Ding. Congratulations on triggering the female configuration upper-level system. Is it bound to this system? Later on, Su Kuei began her long and heartbreaking journey of tormenting the female protagonist Nan. P.S. Note that this article features top-notch beauties appearing. What type do you want? A loyal dog. Ghost beast. Iceberg. Proud and delicate. It's okay, I'm willing to satisfy you all the way. PPS. If you like it, please bookmark and vote. Your favorites are my motivation, Momoda, P3 system, keywords of the novel. Fast-wearing goddess, a bit sweet without pop-ups, fast-wearing goddess, a bit sweet. Download the complete text, fast-wearing goddess, a bit sweet. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Disabled Miss, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Disabled Miss, 1, accompanied by the piercing sound of brakes, the eyes were filled with red when Su Kuei woke up again. She was in a pitch-black space. Where am I? She moved her body and found herself floating lightly without any pain. This is not right. Didn't she get hit by that cheap woman driving? The fierce and hateful impact made Su Kuei realize that even if she didn't die, she would still be half disabled. But now, what is the situation? Su Kuei comes from a top-notch family, has been pampered since childhood, and has a clever mind. Perhaps her only mistake in this life was being with a scumbag and getting her leg chopped. Although she decisively and fiercely retaliated, causing the dog man and woman to lose their reputation, she also paid the price of her life. Yes, Su Kuei clearly realized that she was probably dead after all. No normal person can withstand such a fierce collision. Su Kuei clenched her fist. Suddenly, a mechanical cold voice rang out in this pitch-black, fingerless space. Ding! Congratulations on successfully triggering the female supporting upper-level system. Is it bound to this system? Su Kuei was taken aback and then calmed down. Who is it? Being in a high position for decades was enough to keep her calm in any situation. Ding! The purpose of this system is to save the female supporting role and defeat the White Lotus female lead. Su Kuei. She has also read several online novels under the influence of her friends, but she always thought they were all illusory. Unexpectedly, the system really exists. Su Kuei's heart gradually ignited a glimmer of hope. After binding, do I have any rewards? Can I still resurrect? Ding! After binding, the host will shuttle to various planes worlds and become a female supporting character. You need to change the tragic fate of the female supporting character. When the mission is successful, you will accumulate a certain exchange point, and use the exchange point to exchange for resurrection potion. Ding! Are you bound? Are you bound? The system has entered the countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7 inch before Su Kuei could even be pleasantly surprised, she hurriedly said, bind the system. Ding! The system is binding. Ding! The system binding has been successful. Please read the female configuration manual carefully. The first plane transmission is about to begin. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, teleportation begins. As the system sound fell, Su Kuei also completely lost consciousness. In the 7th year of the Dayuan era, Taisha Prefecture. A luxurious courtyard is located within it, with a cluster of flowers and luxurious decorations inside. At this moment, there was a young girl about 16 years old with a pale face lying on the bed. With tightly closed eyes and curly eyelashes like a flapping butterfly, the lips have no trace of blood. At this moment, The girl on the bed slowly opened her eyes, which were clear like a clear spring, calm and without waves. Su Kuei slowly digested the storyline introduction transmitted to her by the system in her mind. Here is an fictional dynasty called the Yuan. The current owner of her body is Feng Yanran, the eldest daughter of the current Taisha Feng. A tragic supporting actress, it can be said that her life was spent supporting the female lead. The female protagonist Feng Qingqing is her third sister, who is extremely favored despite being a commoner. Although Feng Yanran was legitimate, she lost her mother at a young age and had disabled legs, which naturally led to a violent and unpredictable personality that was extremely annoying. The male protagonist is the current emperor and is now under the control of the regent, Junmo. However, in the future, when the male and female protagonists work together, they will naturally remove all obstacles that hinder them. And Feng Yanran is undoubtedly a competent supporting actress, running wildly on the path of death, just to add some obstacles to the relationship between the male and female leads and make them more loving. Brin's new book Rebirth of the National Goddess. Emperor of the Movie, Momoda requests collection and rescue. Author Tang, please don't hesitate. Brin bows to you with all the national goddess. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Disabled Miss, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Disabled Miss, 2. At the end of the story, Feng Yanran achieved great success and retired, but was abandoned by her family. From then on, she lived a life of eternal glory. Su Kuei closed her eyes and resisted the urge to curse. If the system had a physical entity, Su Kuei believed she could definitely dismantle it alive. In order to revive everything, Su Kuei clenched her fists. Opening his eyes again, there was a hint of malice in his eyes, which was the nature of the original owner himself. With a wave of her hand, Su Kuei knocked down the medicine bowl on the low side of the bed, causing the porcelain bowl to make a piercing sound and shatter into several pieces. So the maids hurriedly ran in and saw the young lady with a pale little face, cherry lips tightly pursed, and her pupils filled with violence. They shivered and knelt down, little. Miss, what's wrong with you? Su Kuei snorted coldly, since Miss Ben woke up, there hasn't even been anyone to take care of her. From my perspective, everyone is in need of cleaning up, otherwise others would think you are the master and I am the servant. Can you still get this big hat off? They are all girls who have signed death contracts, and even if the master is unhappy and kills them casually, no one cares. Immediately, the two maids were so frightened that their faces turned pale. With tears streaming down their noses, they vigorously kowtowed and shouted, "Woo-woo. Miss, please spare your life. The third lady in the front yard needs manpower to move the house, so I asked the maids to help me. Please forgive me, Mississippi. I won't dare to do it again next time." After hearing this, Su Kuei didn't get angry but smiled instead. With an indescribable charm in her raised eyes, she said, "Oh. Feng Qingqing is nothing but a commoner. You dare to use my maid. Well, since you like to serve her, I'll give you a favor. Let's tidy up and go to her yard to serve you." As soon as she finished speaking, the two maids both changed their faces and said, "Miss, please spare your life, Mississippi Woo-woo. You should know that the rules in the Grand Preceptor's mansion are extremely strict. Servants who are despised by the Lord have to shed their skin even if they don't die." Su Kuei was too lazy to listen to them. In the plot given to her by the system, these two big girls next to Feng Yanran were already bought by Aunt C. It can be said that Feng Yanran was able to develop such a foolish and ignorant personality as she is now, and her tragic fate in the future is attributed to these two girls. If Su Kuei had let go of such a good opportunity now, it wouldn't have been her vengeful personality. Pack up these little shrimp as soon as possible, the main task is still ahead. So Su Kuei, with a cold face, shouted at the door in a loud voice, "Someone, pull these two girls who are holding on to me out, and don't let them step into my yard again." A nanny came in with a lotus seed soup in her hand and two rough women behind her. Seeing Su Kuei wake up, she was overjoyed and quickly walked to her bed, asking with concern, "Is Miss still feeling unwell?" Seeing Su Kuei's ugly face and the mess in front of the bed, he quickly asked what was going on. After listening to the whole story, Granny Gu immediately became angry and rushed to the kneeling maids with one swift step. She kicked and flipped them over, pointing at their noses and cursing, "What a despicable hoof. Did the fourth wife give you gold or silver, so that you wouldn't serve the wealthy master?" Baba ran over and stuck to a lowly seed. "If I'm not here for a while, you'll be in chaos, right?" With a big wave of his hand, he gestured at the two rough women and said, "Twist them out, lock them in the firewood shed, and beat me hard. I'll make a decision after I consult with the old lady." Her eldest daughter, even if she is not good at her profession, is still the top and most prestigious master of the Taisher mansion, and the eye of the old lady. She cannot tolerate any trampling by others. Since these two despicable hooves insist on Ba rushing up to die, Granny Gu doesn't mind giving a warning to the monkeys. Let the servants of the Grand Tutor's mansion also see who is the true master of the mansion. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Disabled Miss, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Disabled Miss, 3. With cold eyes, Su Kuei watched as the two limp girls with tears streaming down their faces were twisted and pulled out. Su Kuei yawned slowly, and a crystal-clear tear hung on her eyelashes, unable to fall off, making her extremely lovable. The owner of this body went out for a spring outing with Feng Qingqing a few days ago, but unexpectedly met several arch-rivals on the way. The young ladies naturally gave her a good scolding. Feng Yanran has a hot-tempered and irritable personality. After a series of entanglements, she even rolled into the lotus pond with a wheelchair, and when she was caught, she was already on the brink of death. Perhaps it was her deep-seated resentment that led to Su Kuei's arrival. Grandma Gu saw Su Kuei yawn, with a pitiful expression on her face. Her heart and liver instantly melted, and her wrinkled old face turned into a chrysanthemum smile. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, Feng Yanran is a true mixed world witch, with an unpredictable and cold-blooded personality. However, in the eyes of the nanny who raised her from a young age, she is always good. So, Grandma Gu looked up at the sky outside the window and kindly said, "Miss, you just woke up and your body is weak. Can you lie down for a while longer? Just woke up and had a big commotion." Su Kuei was indeed a bit tired, and she hadn't figured out how to face Gu Mama who treated her so well. So she nodded and pushed the boat along. "Okay." Then, as if suddenly remembering something, her face changed dramatically and she said fiercely to Gu Mama, "Punish those two girls who have betrayed me so hard that they know I'm not easy to deal with." Grandma Gu quickly nodded and comforted, "Miss, don't be angry. I will go and report to the old lady. These two despicable hooves will definitely be severely punished." She tucked in the corner of her blanket again, and then hurriedly left. The room fell silent for a moment. Su Kuei lowered her eyes and pondered carefully. It would be extremely difficult to change Feng Yanran's fate with her poor physical condition. Moreover, in this world, it is not her ability to resist death and escape the fate of being cannon fodder. The main structure of this world is composed of the male protagonist Yuan Yang Emperor Yuan Chen and the female protagonist Feng Qingqing, with their secondary branches being the cannon fodder of these insignificant figures. Since that's the case, how could Su Kuei fantasize about being able to break away from the main storyline? It can be said that there are only two paths before her now, one artillery itself. Two anti-cannon fodder male and female protagonists, turn over and become queens, stirring up this world. Of course, in order to work hard to earn exchange points, Su Kuei can only bravely move forward. After all, the downside of the system is that everything in the mall is damn expensive. To exchange for the resurrection potion she has been dreaming of, she needs 100 million exchange points. After organizing the general direction of effort in her mind, Su Kuei sighed. It's really a long and arduous task. It is not difficult to change Feng Yanran's fate, but living a miserable life is not the character of Miss Su Kuei. She not only needs to protect herself, but also to protect Grandma Gu and Grandma Feng, who loves her very much. However, as long as you can hold on to a thick thigh, all of this will be easily resolved. And Su Kuei's only golden finger probably knew the general direction of the world. Coincidentally, there were still 3 months left until the beginning of the story, and the male and female protagonists had not yet met. Behind the Great Yuan dynasty, the regent Wang Junmo was still in charge. If I could climb such a big tree. Su Kuei's delicate jade pointed at her pink and white cherry lips and smiled playfully. As the only implicit boss in the story who can compete with the male lead, Su Kuei's confidence in him cannot be greater. Let's guess who the male lead will be. Lala, X3 system, end of this chapter. Chapter 4. Disabled Miss, 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Disabled Miss, 4. In the Fujian courtyard, an elegant old lady with white temples lay on a soft couch, holding a Buddhist pearl in her left hand and closing her eyes to rest. 2 young maids, one on the left and the other on the right, pinched her shoulders and pounded her legs. The sandalwood fragrance fluttered on the desk, turning into ethereal clouds and mist. At this moment, an old lady hurriedly ran in from outside and silently and respectfully blessed the old lady. The old lady half squinted her eyes shining brightly, but after only 2 seconds, they quickly faded away. From the outside, it looked like an old lady over 50 years old. However, how can a woman who can protect her young son and climb to the highest position step by step in this huge house after her husband's early death be without any threat? The old lady waved her hand, and Grandma Gu took 2 steps forward and whispered a few words in her ear. The old lady suddenly opened her eyes, patted her hands and smiled for a while, but the girl narrowly escaped death this time, and her mind really opened up. I had already noticed that the 2 girls around her had ulterior motives, but she didn't have a long mind and couldn't see clearly. Grandma Gu also smiled and said, "Isn't there an old lady protecting her? Besides, I see that the young lady has grown up after this incident. Alas, it's pitiful to see her. Her father sees her as if he sees an enemy, and her legitimate brother doesn't get close to her. How can I protect her for a lifetime as an old lady?" The old lady sat up and sneered, waving her hand. "But I see that the heart of the 4th wife is getting bigger and bigger. Being illegitimate is like being illegitimate. Relying on her ambition to spoil her, she actually wants to ride on the head of her legitimate daughter. It's time to teach them a lesson. Go beat each of the 2 girls who hold the back, and then send them to the 4th room." Grandma Gu immediately lowered her head and hurriedly went out to carry out her orders. The next day, with bright daylight, Su Kuei slowly opened her eyes. Comfortably stretching lazily, the silk slipped off, and the slender waist was tightly gripped, revealing snowy skin as white as sheep fat. What a beautiful picture of a woman in spring fatigue. The little girl who came up from below suddenly held a basin and looked straight at it, staring in place for a while. Su Kuei glanced sideways, her eyes like spring water. "What are you doing there? Why don't you come over and take care of me to wash up?" "Yes, miss, I apologize. The servant is here right now." The startled girl quickly replied, sweating profusely. Why did she lose her mind in front of the young lady? I hope the young lady didn't take it to heart and punished her. After dressing, gargling, wiping and dressing, the little girl was surprised to find that the eldest daughter was not as scary as the sisters said in private. Even when combing her hair, she forcefully pulled off a strand of green silk, and the young lady did not punish her. The little girl breathed a sigh of relief in secret, but couldn't help but secretly look at Su Kuei. The more she looked, the more she felt that the young lady looked like a fairy. It was just a pity, Su Kuei's face was tense, but she actually saw everything in her eyes and was amused. What she wanted was this kind of effect, a little change, to make people around her accept her now unconsciously. After finishing her makeup, Su Kuei looked at the water mirror left and right, secretly saying that the original owner had a good foundation, with large and round cat pupils and pink lips. Although she was not very old, she could still see the future beauty of the city. Su Kuei silently thought to herself, if holding your thighs is not successful, you can still consider using the beauty trick. Everything was arranged properly, and Su Kuei led a group of maids and women towards the old lady's fusion courtyard in a grand manner. To create a positive impression, start with dolls. Su Kuei thought she had arrived early enough, but as soon as she turned into the courtyard, she saw a beautiful woman and two young girls standing in front of the main courtyard. Let me ask you guys, do you think it's better to have a story about how long? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Disabled Miss, 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Disabled Miss, 5. Su Kuei glanced casually, realizing that the population of Feng Mansion was still very simple. Her legitimate husband died of childbirth when Feng Yanran was born, and the other two wives also passed away one after another. As for the tricks involved, they need to be discussed. In addition to the fourth lady, Taisher Feng also had several concubines, and these unnamed concubines were not qualified to come and greet the old lady. As for the other two young women, Su Kuei moved her fingers. The girl in the white dress smiled happily, with a clever energy between her eyebrows. The other one was a bit dim in comparison. Although her face was also pretty, her wooden expression looked less pleasing than the girl in the white dress. After a few glances, Su Kuei realized that the beautiful woman must be the fourth lady, and the girl in the white dress must be Feng Qingqing. She did indeed have some beauty. She curled her lips and smiled. The big girl guarding the door, Xuanguo, saw Su Kuei come in and quickly welcomed her with a warm smile. "Miss, are you here? Come in quickly, it's cold in the morning, don't freeze." It is clear at a glance who is close and who is kissing. The fourth lady and daughter gritted their lips in hatred, and Su Kuei deliberately held her chin high as she was pushed past by Xuanguo, laughing proudly. "Anyway, I didn't plan to get closer and strengthen my relationship with them, so for Su Kuei, having more or less hatred is not bad." As she approached the entrance of the main room, Su Kuei's mouth lit up with a wicked smile. She turned around to ponder and said lightly, "Oh, by the way, why don't fourth aunt and her two younger sisters go back first? It's okay to stay here and catch a cold, I'm afraid it might disturb grandma's rest." Damn it. This is the inner voice of both the fourth lady and Feng Qingxin. Why didn't they drown her when they fell into the pond a few days ago? Feng Qingxin bit her lip and was about to speak out in defense when she was grabbed by the fourth lady. The fourth lady's face remained unchanged and she chuckled, "Miss, it's our duty as younger generations. We must keep quiet and never disturb the old lady." Su Kuei licked her lips and snorted from her nasal cavity. Jian was indeed old and spicy. Feng Qingqing is indeed a bit immature now. She shook her sleeves and said, "Then Aunt C, let's wait, slowly, dot." At the moment when Xuanguo pushed her in, an old lady bowed and passed by. After entering the main hall, one could vaguely hear the old lady's voice coming from the courtyard, "Fourth madam, the old lady is not feeling well today. I'm sorry to ask for your greetings, so let's go back now." The old lady is feeling unwell, and we need to go in and visit her. We'll do our best. No need, fourth madam, third miss, and fourth miss, please come back. When the old lady entered the room again, Su Kuei-fang slowly waved his hand to signal Xuanguo to continue pushing forward, without any discomfort from being caught in the corner. She was babbling and humming a little tune in her mouth, obviously a scene that happened in the morning was enough to keep her in a good mood for the whole day. The old lady, dressed in a longevity Confucian robe and wearing a jade hairpin on her head, walked in with the help of a maid. She saw her beloved granddaughter with her toes raised, her little hands tapping and whispering softly, her heart melting with that painful energy. She smiled and said, "Oh my, how could Ran Air be so happy today? But after hearing something fun, she also said it to make her grandmother happy. Su Kuei didn't feel shy when she heard someone's joke. She raised her lips and smiled sweetly, and the small dimples on her cheeks seemed to be filled with honey. Grandmother still doesn't know why her granddaughter is happy, she said. You, the old lady nodded her forehead. Haven't you had breakfast yet, have you? Come and have some with your grandmother. Su Kuei immediately nodded and jumped out with kind words, coaxing the old lady into ecstasy and cursing her as a ghost spirit. Don't blame me for being verbose / in the next chapter. Try to pull the male lead out and walk around, touch and prick. If you like it, remember to bookmark it. Otherwise, you won't be able to find me again next time. What if I get swollen? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Disabled Miss, 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Disabled Miss, 6. On this day, Su Kuei, as usual, gained favor from the old lady. Met a man with a clear and handsome face who was about to touch a man in his 20s. He had a solemn expression, his eyes not straying, and his footsteps hurried forward, intending to ignore Su Kuei who was coming towards him. Su Kuei secretly smiled bitterly. At this age, there were probably only her eldest brother Feng Zheng in the mansion, and she didn't know why Feng Yanran hated dogs and laws. Even her eldest brother despised him. Although Feng Zheng's face remained unchanged, his eyes had already quietly flown towards his younger sister many times. Although he was tired of her strange appearance, he was still born from a mother's womb, so there was no reason not to feel sorry for her. But if he were to ask, he might invite her to mock her again. He had planned to bypass her and greet the old lady, but he saw her with a wry smile, her big cat pupils flickering, and a hint of tears. Immediately, there was a pause in the footsteps, as if it weighed 1,000 pounds and could no longer be lifted. What's wrong with this? Sighed helplessly. Su Kuei's eyes lit up, her beautiful little face became even more aggrieved, her nose wrinkled, and she timidly asked with a crying voice, Brother. Does brother hate Yanran? Feng Zheng was shocked. How long has it been since Yanran called her brother? This. He was about to speak to comfort, but suddenly remembered countless pranks by Feng Yanran before, as well as her malicious mockery. The words he wanted to say were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say them. So he simply shut up and continued towards the Fusion Academy with a cold face. Approaching her, the hem of her clothes was suddenly grasped by a tender white jade-like hand. Release. I don't. Su Kuei's face was stubborn. If my brother doesn't give me the truth today, I will definitely not let go. The maids and women beside her all mourned in their hearts, and the young lady and young master fought back. Feng Zheng was so annoyed by Feng Yanran's unreasonable behavior that he tore off the hem of his clothes and spoke coldly, Yes. I hate you. Then he left without looking back, leaving Su Kuei stunned, clutching a small piece of fabric and lost in thought. After a while, he suddenly turned his head and roared in the direction of Feng Zheng, Yes, I hate it. I'm disgusting, my mother is gone. My dad hates me. Now even my brother hates me. I'm still alive. I might as well die 100 times. Not far from the Fusion courtyard is a small lotus pond. It is now early summer, and the lotus flowers in the pond are pink, white, and tender, blooming gracefully. Su Kuei had already set her sights on this pond, and now she let go of her harsh words and didn't need the girl to do anything. She pushed the wheels with both hands and moved towards the lotus pond bit by bit. The girl and mother-in-law were all shocked. Grandma Gu's face turned pale with fear. She quickly reached out to stop her, tears streaming down her face. Mississippi. My miss, what are you doing? Don't take it too hard. The young master was just angry, you. Su Kuei interrupted her words, crying uncontrollably, tears like broken pearls. Grandma Gu, don't stop me. In fact, I know in my heart that the young lady of the Grand Master's mansion is a useless person who is not good at her actions. I don't know how many people are laughing at her father and brother outside. Why don't you let me die? It will also ruin the reputation of the Grand Master's mansion. Sukue tried to push the wheel towards the lotus pond, while Grandma Gu tried her best to pull from behind. The other girls were all dumbfounded. Where did this come from? Let me die, Granny Gu, let go. Seeing the edge of the pool, Sukue was about to jump. Grandma Gu hugged her tightly and cried out in a mournful manner like killing a pig, young master. Come quickly, young lady, you're looking for a way out. Okay, I broke my promise. This chapter is about brushing my brother's favor, end of this chapter. Chapter 7. Disabled Miss, 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Disabled Miss, 7. Sukue was so scared by the pig-killing cry that she broke out in a cold sweat. She didn't really plan to jump, did she? However, since Granny Gu is so cooperative, if she doesn't make use of it, it's just that her mind has gone crazy. After silently feeling guilty for deceiving an old man for a second, Sukue struggled even harder and said, Grandma Gu, don't call me brother, just let me die. Feng Zheng originally wanted to ignore it, thinking that Feng Yanran was still pretending as usual. However, the more he ignored it, the more chaotic it became behind him. He furrowed his pretty eyebrows, turned around and strode back, suppressing his anger. He picked up Sukue and said, that's enough. Do you still think it's not embarrassing enough? Sukue, like a chicken cub, was easily lifted up by him, feeling extremely angry in his heart. He turned to his mouth and said, let go of me. What I want to do is up to you to manage, don't you hate me? So why are you coming back? Feng Zheng was enraged and laughed heartily. I don't care, no one is allowed to stop me today. I'll watch you dance next to me. Grandma Gu was shocked when she heard this and quickly advised, young master, please don't provoke Miss, she is also suffering in her heart. This is truly true. Feng Yanran was born with weak legs and was not good at handling things. Although she bore the title of legitimate daughter, she had no maternal protection, which was disliked by her father. Although the servants in the mansion showed great respect to her, they couldn't figure out how to arrange her behind her back. So Feng Yanran was just using her rude nature to attract the attention of her father and brother, concealing her inner insecurity and unease. Upon hearing this, Sukue's face changed, with a pink and white face that turned red. She opened a pair of clear cat pupils and glanced at Feng Zheng in a flickering manner. Seeing him ignore, feeling aggrieved and wanting to shed tears. Feeling ashamed and angry, I wish I could dive into the lotus pond and never have to face all the complexities of this world again. As he was burying his head, suddenly his body lightened and he had fallen into a clean and broad chest. The dry hands rubbed her hair and a soft sigh sounded at the top of her hair. Ah, I really don't know what you're trying to do, girl. Hurry up and collect your crocodile tears. Then Feng Zheng shook his sleeve and said, go back. Since the day Feng Zheng escorted Sukue back to his room and was pestered by Sukue to coax her to sleep, there seems to be something different between the two siblings. At first, Feng Zheng was always wary of what Sukue would do and refused to listen to her. Even if Sukue went to find him, he would be directly rejected. Later on, although she improved a bit, it didn't improve much either. She just entered the house from outside, and then Feng Zheng pushed her to a distance that wouldn't disturb him, ignoring it. However, for Sukue, this is already a great progress. It took Sukue a month and 3 days from glaring angrily at Feng Yanran and seeing her as the heir to entering the room. In total, Sukue has been in the Yuan dynasty for a full 3 months. And while, the plot has officially begun. In August of the 7th year of the Yuan dynasty, after Emperor Yang ascended to the throne, she held her first election as a courtesan. From civil and military officials to ordinary people, all women of appropriate age must be selected. After a primary selection, they are selected from counties, and prefectures. Those who pass the final review are rare beauties in the world. Of course, there are exceptions to the rules. For example, Feng Yanran, Feng Qingqing and Feng Ruoyu are the three sisters. Their father was the current grand tutor, and in order to stabilize his power, the emperor had to take in several daughters of powerful officials in the harem to appease their hearts. Su Kuei knows the plot. Today is the beginning of Feng Yanran's tragic life and also the beginning of her changing destiny. Facing the dazzling sunlight in the sky, Su Kuei's cat pupils narrowed into a straight line. And someone who was flipping through memorials in the study suddenly felt a chill all over, with a feeling of being watched by someone for a long time. In the next chapter, I will show you the people you want to see. Waving claws, end of this chapter. Chapter 8. Disabled Miss, 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Disabled Miss, 8. Since receiving the edict, the Taisher mansion has been preparing in an orderly manner. To be precise, from the old lady, Taisher Feng, to the concubines and concubines, everyone in the mansion knows this well. Especially among the three young ladies in the mansion, two of them are the fourth aunt. These days, she has been walking with her chin high in a tiger-like manner, looking like a small person achieving success. Feng Qingqing and Feng Ruoyu have long been taught by fourth aunt Feng Taisher to the old ladies in the palace, and they are all clear about the etiquette and rules in the palace. On the contrary, Feng Yanran was ignored due to her physical condition. Anyway, everyone knows that this young lady is 100% likely to lose the election. In the blink of an eye, it was August 3rd, and today was the day when the lady entered the palace. The old lady kindly escorted her onto the carriage and touched her head, as if Su Kuei was not entering the palace but just leaving the door and would soon be back. Ranner, be good. The old lady only said one sentence to her at the end. Su Kuei narrowed her eyes with a smile and nodded heavily, I know. Yu Guang looked at Taisher Feng and fourth auntie standing nearby, escorting Feng Qingqing and Feng Ruoyu onto the carriage. With careful instructions, he couldn't help but darken his eyes. Su Kuei immediately lowered her eyelids to cover the mockery in her eyes. This grand tutor Feng was also cold and ruthless. Feng Yanran was such a silly girl, who was ignored and even had fantasies about fatherly love. Looking at Su Kuei's appearance, the old lady sighed and waved her hand without saying anything. Obviously, she also had no choice but to do with this son. Feng Zheng, who had been standing silently in front of the mansion, silently staring at Su Kuei, saw this and his eyes flickered. Watching her act coquettishly towards the old lady, the small dimples on her cheeks filled with honey, and watching her eagerly look at her father without receiving any attention, feeling disappointed and aggrieved. I don't know why, but he felt a slight dull pain in his heart. Thinking of Su Kuei's performance over the past month, it seemed like he had indeed changed his temper. Feng Zheng finally stepped up and approached before the carriage set off, rubbing her hair like an old lady. In the palace, it's not at home. You can let yourself play around, and you're not too young. Remember not to make mistakes in the palace. After a while, my brother will come and pick you up, he said. Su Kuei's cat's pupils lit up and he immediately raised a big smiling face, which made him dizzy. The carriage slowly started and headed towards the palace towering in the center of Kyoto. Su Kuei waved vigorously towards the old lady and brother until they could no longer be seen. Slowly letting go and sitting back in the car, Su Kuei lightly curled her lips and smiled. She nodded her cherry lips, feeling surprisingly happy. Is this considered a successful strategy? So, even if she can't hold on to her thick thighs, she still has a way out. At least, she is no longer alone like Feng Yanran, with no way to go. So, as soon as Su Kuei was in a good mood, she started humming a little tune. What is it to say that heaven and earth are together for a long time? He said it's joy and joy, and he said it's sorrow and contentment. Until now, it's like the autumn wind passing by, with a stroke of kindness. It's like being alone, a good dream once it's over. Su Kuei raised her orchid fingers and murmured softly. She sang a song by Du Shenyang vividly, as if a heartless man had betrayed her. At this moment, a luxurious carriage passed by the carriage of Feng Mansion, with a small flag flying in the wind above it. On the flag was a lone wolf with a sinister gaze. A man in the car propped up his cheeks with one hand, his jade fingers playing with a bone china cup flipping up and down, and the silver light flowing through his flowing cloud robe, looking extremely bored. Until he heard the soft and delicate singing of the soft jade, some sentences even couldn't be heard clearly due to the owner's carelessness, but they could still hold people's hearts. The man couldn't explain what it felt like, but if he had to say it, it would be like a lonely ghost who has been wandering for 100 years suddenly finding a home. The life of fear and uncertainty will completely leave him, and he will no longer be lonely. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Disabled Miss, 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Disabled Miss, 9. The Dayuan Imperial Palace is adorned with glazed and golden tiles, and many palaces are hidden behind the vermilion palace walls, stacked in layers. Su Kuei was swaying on the carriage, almost falling asleep. At that moment, Grandma Gu, who was outside the carriage, lifted the curtain and said, "Miss, we're here." According to the rules, a lady must walk into the palace, and even if Su Kuei is not good at walking, there is absolutely no possibility of taking a carriage into the palace. Although Su Kuei also wanted to roast about this bug, how far did Emperor Yang of the Yuan dynasty lack women, so that he could also list the original one among the candidates. Su Kuei helped Grandma Gu out of the car and then got into a wheelchair. At this moment, I felt a burning gaze cast on me, extremely aggressive, almost burning her from head to toe. Su Kuei looked back and immediately bumped into a pair of dark, bottomless eyes like ancient wells. The man who had just gotten off the carriage had sharp eyebrows, cold eyes, knife-like facial features, and a thin lips. At this moment, he stood with his hands on his back, his tall and upright figure becoming even more ethereal among the group of beautiful maids. His icy eyes fell on Su Kuei. Su Kuei was stunned for a second, then suddenly looked straight at him and gave him a big smile, with the dimples on her cheeks deeply sunken. The smile was as bright as the scorching sun in March, like a raging fire, stunning not just him alone. Looking at the gaze of other ladies towards Su Kuei, it was like an ice knife wishing to transform into a substance and stab her a few times, which was enough to show the killing power of Su Kuei's smile. The man squinted his eyes, his narrow phoenix eyes full of evil intent, and suddenly took a step towards her direction. The steps were firm and powerful, like a warrior holding a sword, rushing towards him with a momentum that could crush the heavens and earth. This posture can annihilate everything. Su Kuei leaned quietly in the wheelchair, with a light smile and a bright little face that was invincible. And inside, she was nervous and excited, but none of these could compare to the trembling emanating from her soul. Excitement outweighs fear, however, in just a few tens of meters, it feels like walking for 100 years. The man just looked at her, walked step by step through the silent crowd, and came alone to her side. Looking down at her with lowered eyelids, "What's your name?" Su Kuei curled up her lips and laughed recklessly, with a hint of provocation, "What about you? What's your name?" No one has ever dared to be so brazen in front of him, not only ignoring his questioning, but also daring to openly ask his name. Interesting. The man frowned, "Probably a girl." "Yes, young girl, a rebellious and cunning girl with a hint of cunning in her bones." After a while, he chuckled lightly and said, "Oh, my name is Junmo, remember?" Sure enough, it's him. Su Kuei looked up at him. Junmo was too tall. With her current posture, it was really difficult to observe. So Su Kuei did something that startled everyone. She reached out her tender white hand and grabbed Junmo's cold big hand, slowly pulling it down. What's even more surprising is that Junmo was very cooperative and gradually bent down, finally slowly squatting in front of her and looking at her level. Now it's ready. Su Kuei withdrew her small hand, and as she left, Junmo felt inexplicably reluctant in his heart. And Su Kuei seemed to have done something particularly remarkable, laughing happily and saying, "My name is Ah Kuei." Ah Kuei. Junmo repeated the name between his lips and teeth, feeling like honey could seep out. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Disabled Miss, 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Disabled Miss, 10. What happened before us was so dramatic, which was the unanimous voice in everyone's hearts. Grandma Gu reacted for a long time and just heard Su Kuei's self-introduction. She was so shocked that a cold sweat broke out. It's all so difficult for an old lady who should have enjoyed the joy of family, but always worries about Su Kuei. This is Junmo, who holds the entire de Yuan in his palm. A true regent king and the mastermind behind de Yuan. She trembled and fell to her knees, trembling as she spoke, "Greetings to the prince. Please forgive me, prince. If my young lady unintentionally offends you, I hope you have a large amount of forgiveness." Granny Gu's action startled a large group of people, so outside the palace, a large group of people knelt down with a loud bang. Su Kuei frowned imperceptibly, thinking to herself that fortunately her body was disabled, so she didn't have to kneel and bow her head everywhere in this ancient world where high and low levels were particularly distinct. Her action, which she thought was well disguised, had already fallen into Junmo's eyes without a trace. For some reason, watching her unhappy expression made Junmo feel uncomfortable. It's like being in a magic barrier, not even realizing it. He shook his sleeves with a cold face and said, "Let's all get up." Then he said to Granny Gu, who refused to get up for a long time, "You also get up." I don't blame her, that's it. Su Kuei, however, seemed to suddenly react and stared at him in surprise with her two sparkling cat pupils open. "You're actually a prince. What do you mean by being a prince?" Granny Gu only felt her eyes turn black. She thought the young lady had finally grown up after a few months of calamity, but she didn't realize it, so it's just accumulating amplification skills. At this moment, a slender green dress girl suddenly ran out of the crowd, knelt down with a thud, and fiercely kowtowed at Junmo, with a beautiful face that I still pity. "Prince, sister, she must be a witch. She wasn't like this before, and I don't know what happened this time. She started talking nonsense. Prince, please spare her for my father's sake." Junmo's eyebrows twisted tightly. What's wrong with this girl? And these inexplicable words, did she just become deaf? Didn't you hear that he had already promised Grandma Gu not to vent his anger on her young lady? However, the person who has been fighting in the center of power since childhood can instantly understand what is going on in less than half a second. In his spare time, he saw Su Kuei still looking indifferent, with a smile on her cherry lips as if watching the green dress girl act. "Oh. Who is your father?" The girl was overjoyed in her heart and tried to hold back the urge to jump out of her chest. With a crying voice, she said, "My father is the current Grand Tutor Feng Qingji. Your Highness, please spare my sister." Junmo, however, did not take her on this issue and became more interested in Su Kuei. "You just said she wasn't like this before, so what was she like before?" "This." Feng Qingqing's eyes flickered, with an indescribable expression of bitterness. Granny Gu originally thought that Feng Qingqing was truly seeking mercy, but now she realized that being illegitimate means being illegitimate and will never be able to make a name for herself. "I haven't become an imperial concubine yet, so I'll hurry to apply eye drops to my eldest sister." "Poochie." Su Kuei couldn't help but laugh. She coughed a few times, glanced at Feng Qingqing, and nodded at her mercilessly, mocking her. You really don't want to miss any opportunity to smear me. What do you want to say?" "I used to be arrogant, harsh on servants, and disrespectful to elders, right?" Feng Qingqing's eyes were filled with tears, and he stared at Su Kuei with great sadness. He dared not speak up. Sister, what are you talking about? How dare Ching Ching? End of this chapter.